3 minutes. That was the time difference between the worst moment of Amethyst's life and the best. At 10:03 a.m., her husband, Marcus, tossed divorce papers onto her lap, sneering that she was nothing but a dead weight anchoring down his rising career. He didn't even stay to watch her cry. But at 10:06 a.m., as the ink was still drying on the decree, Amethyst's phone buzzed. It wasn't a consolation text. It was a notification from the Global Sovereign Bank. The acquisition was complete. The useless housewife Marcus had just discarded was now the CEO of a shadow corporation worth $800 million. And he had no idea he had just walked away from the biggest empire in New York. The rain in Manhattan didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Amethyst Sterling stood outside the heavy oak doors of the dean's office at Columbia University, clutching a leather portfolio that had seen better days. Her heels were scuffed. Her coat was 3 seasons old. To anyone passing by, the bright-eyed undergraduates, the hurried professors, she looked like a woman trying too hard to hold on to a fading middle-class existence. She checked her watch, a vintage Cartier, the only thing of value her grandmother had left her. It was 8:45 a.m. "Mrs. Sterling?" the secretary called out, not bothering to look up from her typing. "Your husband's assistant called. He won't be attending the ceremony." Amethyst felt the familiar sting, dull and throbbing, in her chest. Of course he wouldn't. Marcus Sterling, the golden boy of Sterling & Cumber's real estate, didn't have time for a graduation ceremony, especially not hers. To Marcus, Amethyst's return to university to finish her MBA at 28 was a quaint little hobby. He liked to joke at dinner parties, back when he still invited her to them, that Amethyst was playing business while he was out building the city. "Thank you, Janice," Amethyst said softly. Her voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. She walked out into the drizzle, pulling her coat tighter. What Marcus didn't know, what no one knew, was that the portfolio she clutched wasn't filled with homework. It contained the final structuring documents for Project Ether, a proprietary algorithm for predicting urban real estate trends that she had been developing in secret for 4 years. While Marcus was busy shouting at contractors and greasing the palms of city council members, Amethyst had been coding, analyzing, and building. She hadn't used his money. She hadn't used his name. She had used her maiden name, Amethyst Vance, and worked through shell companies so obscure that even the IRS had to squint to see the trail. Her phone buzzed. A text from JT board is assembled at the Pierre Hotel. 11 a.m. sharp. If the papers are signed, the wire hits at noon. 800 hiletos meters. Don't be late, Amethyst. JT was Julian Thorne. The Julian Thorne, the venture capitalist who had broken the Bank of England in the 90s and now ran Thorne Capital. He was the only person who knew that the housewife, Amethyst Sterling, was actually the phantom developer EV, whom Wall Street had been buzzing about for months. Amethyst typed back, "I'll be there. Just have to graduate first." She hailed a cab, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. Today was the day everything changed. She was going to hand Marcus her diploma, reveal the deal, and finally stand beside him as an equal. Maybe then the sneer would leave his face. Maybe then he would look at her the way he did 5 years ago, before the ambition rotted his soul. She arrived at the auditorium. The air smelled of wet wool and floor wax. Families were cheering. Balloons were bobbing. Amethyst sat alone in row G. When they called Amethyst Sterling, the applause was polite, sparse. She walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, and took the empty scroll case. She scanned the crowd, desperate for a familiar face. A glimpse of Marcus's charcoal suit, even his driver. Nothing. She walked off the stage, the master's hood heavy on her shoulders. She went to the side exit, pushing open the heavy doors to the alleyway to catch her breath. And there he was. Marcus wasn't alone. He was leaning against his black Bentley, looking every inch the master of the universe. Beside him, laughing with her head thrown back, was Jessica Vane. Amethyst froze. Jessica was the daughter of Senator Vane. She was blonde, statuesque, and wielded her father's influence like a cudgel. She was everything Amethyst wasn't: loud, connected, and undeniably expensive. Marcus saw Amethyst. His smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of profound annoyance. He checked his Rolex. "You're done?" he asked, as if he were picking up dry cleaning. Yes. "I graduated, Marcus," Amethyst said, stepping into the rain. "I thought you weren't coming." "I'm not here for the ceremony, Amethyst. I'm here because my lawyer said this was the only time I could catch you before my flight to Zurich." Amethyst's blood ran cold. "Zurich? What's in Zurich?" Marcus sighed, a sound of deep, exhausted suffering. He reached into the Bentley and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "We need to stop pretending, Amethyst. This—" He gestured vaguely at her, at the university, at her scuffed heels. "This isn't working for me anymore. My company is about to go public. I need a partner who brings something to the table, not a student, not a dependent." Jessica Vane stepped forward, linking her arm through Marcus's. She looked at Amethyst with pitying eyes. "It's for the best, sweetie. Marcus needs someone who understands the weight of his world. Someone with pedigree." "You're divorcing me?" Amethyst whispered. The rain was matting her hair to her face. "On my graduation day?" "It's effective immediately," Marcus said, shoving the envelope into her hands. "I'm generous. You get the condo in Jersey and a monthly stipend for 2 years. Sign it, now. I need this clear before the IPO roadshow starts next week." "Marcus," Amethyst said, her voice trembling, but not with sadness anymore. A strange heat was rising in her gut. "You don't want to do this. I have something to tell you. Something big." Marcus laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "What? You got an internship? You made honor roll? Amethyst, please. I deal in millions. You deal in homework. Just sign the damn papers." He pulled a Mont Blanc pen from his pocket and held it out. Amethyst looked at the pen. Then she looked at the man she had loved for 7 years. She saw the cruelty in his eyes, the arrogance that blinded him to the diamond standing right in front of him. She took the pen. "Okay, Marcus," she said, her voice suddenly dropping an octave, losing its tremor. "If you want out, you're out." She signed the paper against the hood of the Bentley. The rain blurred the ink slightly, but the signature was clear. Amethyst Sterling. "Done," she said, handing the papers back. "Good," Marcus smirked, pocketing them. "The driver will take you to Jersey. I have a plane to catch." "No need," Amethyst said. She checked her watch. 10:06 a.m., her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. The screen lit up. A secure banking notification from Thorn Capital. "Transfer complete. 800,000 Quasins USD. Account EV Holdings LLC." Amethyst looked up. The tears were gone. In their place was a look of terrifying calm. "I'll take my own car," she said. "You don't have a car," Marcus sneered, opening the door for Jessica. Just then, a sleek, matte black Rolls-Royce Phantom turned the corner of the alley, its LED lights cutting through the gloom. It pulled up smoothly behind Marcus's Bentley. A driver in a crisp uniform stepped out, holding a large umbrella. He walked past Marcus, ignoring him completely, and stopped in front of Amethyst. "Good morning, Miss Vance," the driver said, using her maiden name. Her power name. "Mr. Thorne is waiting at the Pierre. The board is ready to toast the new chairman." Marcus froze, his hand half open on the car door. "Miss Vance? Who is he talking to?" Amethyst stepped under the umbrella. She turned back to her ex-husband. "He's talking to the owner of the company you've been trying to buy for 6 months, Marcus. You wanted a partner with pedigree. You just divorced her." She slid into the Rolls-Royce. "Drive, Arthur. We're late." The interior of the Rolls-Royce was a sanctuary of silence and cream leather. As the car pulled away, leaving a stunned Marcus Sterling standing in the rain, Amethyst didn't look back. She couldn't afford to. If she looked back, she might scream or vomit or shatter into a million pieces. She pressed a button on the armrest, and a chilled bottle of water revealed itself. She took a sip, her hands shaking uncontrollably now that the adrenaline was fading. "Are you all right, Miss Vance?" Arthur asked, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. Arthur had been her security detail for the last 6 months, hired by the investors. He knew more about her double life than her husband did. "I'm divorced, Arthur. Officially." "Congratulations, Mum," Arthur said without a hint of irony. "He was dead weight." Amethyst let out a short, dry laugh. "That's exactly what he called me." The car glided through the traffic of Upper Manhattan. Amethyst opened her portfolio. She had 30 minutes to transform from the discarded wife into the titan of tech. She pulled out a makeup bag, a darker shade of lipstick. She swept her hair back into a severe, elegant bun. She took off the cheap coat and revealed the dress underneath, a structured navy blue sheath that screamed authority. She wasn't Amethyst Sterling anymore. Amethyst Sterling was a ghost. She was Amethyst Vance. The Pierre Hotel loomed ahead. The entrance was swarming with paparazzi. "Why are they here?" Amethyst asked, frowning. "News leaked about the acquisition," Arthur said. "They don't know who the seller is yet. They just know Thorn Capital dropped nearly $1 billion this morning." "Good, let's give them a show." The car stopped. The doorman opened the door. Flashes erupted like lightning. Amethyst stepped out, sunglasses on, ignoring the shouted questions. "Who is she? Is that the buyer?" She swept through the lobby and into the private elevator. The destination, the penthouse suite. When the doors opened, the noise of the party hit her. It was a subdued, expensive kind of noise. Crystal clinking, low murmurs of men who controlled economies. Julian Thorne stood by the window, overlooking Central Park. He was a man of 60, silver-haired, with eyes that could cut glass. When he saw Amethyst, he smiled, a rare expression for the shark of Wall Street. "There she is," Julian announced. The room went silent. 20 heads turned. The woman who just reinvented real estate analytics. "Gentlemen, I give you Amethyst Vance." Applause broke out. Genuine, respectful applause. Amethyst walked into the room, shaking hands. She recognized faces she had only seen in Forbes or on CNBC. David Solomon of Goldman, the head of the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Qatar. And there, standing in the corner looking slightly pale, was Jonathan Crane. Jonathan was Marcus's biggest rival. "Miss Vance," Jonathan said, stepping forward, a glass of scotch in his hand. "I admit I'm shocked. When Julian told us the developer of the Ether algorithm was a woman, I was intrigued. I didn't expect someone so young." "Youth is an asset, Mr. Crane," Amethyst replied smoothly. "It means I haven't learned what's impossible yet." Jonathan chuckled. "Touché. You know, my firm, Crane Global, would have paid double what Thorne paid if you'd come to us first." "Money wasn't the only objective," Amethyst said, taking a glass of champagne from a passing tray. "I needed strategic autonomy. Julian promised me I stay on as CEO. Would you have offered that?" Jonathan paused. "Likely not. We like to control our assets." "Exactly. and I am not an asset to be controlled. The words tasted sweet. For years, Marcus had controlled the narrative. Amethyst is tired. Amethyst is confused. Amethyst is just a student. Speaking of control, Julian Thorne interjected, stepping up beside her. We have a slight complication with the public announcement. Amethyst turned to him. What complication? The press release goes out in an hour, Julian said, his voice lowering. But there's a rumor circulating, a nasty one. Someone is saying that the IP for the algorithm might be contested, that it was developed using resources from another firm. Amethyst stiffened. That's a lie. I built Ether on my own server, in my own time. My lawyers triple-checked the intellectual property rights. I know, Julian said soothingly. But the rumor originated from a specific source, Sterling & Co. Amethyst's glass almost cracked in her hand. Marcus. He doesn't know it's me, Amethyst realized aloud. He thinks he's attacking a faceless competitor. He's trying to devalue the acquisition because he missed out on it. Precisely, Julian nodded. Marcus Sterling has been telling the street that Project Ether is a fraud because he's terrified. If this tech goes wide, his traditional brokerage model is obsolete in 5 years. He's trying to kill the baby in the crib. Amethyst walked to the window. She looked down at the city. Somewhere down there, Marcus was probably celebrating his freedom, telling Jessica Vane how he had cut the dead weight. He was already plotting to destroy her life's work, without even knowing it was hers. Let him talk, Amethyst said, turning back to the room. Her eyes were cold. If he wants a war, Julian, we'll give him one. But we won't fight him in the press. How then? Julian asked, intrigued. The real estate gala is next Friday, Amethyst said. Marcus is receiving the Developer of the Year award. He thinks he's the King of New York. He is, Jonathan Crane chimed in, unless someone knocks his crown off. Amethyst smiled. It was a smile that would have made Marcus Sterling run for the hills if he had seen it. I don't want to knock it off, Amethyst said softly. I want to buy the castle he's standing in. She looked at Julian. Does Sterling and Coders have any outstanding leverage? Loans? Lines of credit? Julian pulled out his phone. He's highly leveraged for his IPO. He owes about $200 million to Vanguard Western. Buy the debt, Amethyst said instantly. The room went silent again. Excuse me? Julian blinked. Use my portion of the acquisition funds, Amethyst commanded. Buy the debt from Vanguard. Offer them a premium. By tonight, I want to own every cent Marcus Sterling owes. Amethyst, Julian warned. That's aggressive. That's a hostile move. He served me divorce papers on my graduation day. Julian, Amethyst said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried across the silent room. He threw me away like trash because he wanted a partner with power. I'm just showing him what real power looks like. Julian stared at her for a long moment. Then a slow grin spread across his face. He tapped his glass with a spoon. Gentlemen, Julian announced. Change of plans. We aren't just launching a tech company today. We are going hunting. The week following the divorce was a study in contrasts. For Marcus Sterling, it was a victory lap. For Amethyst Vance, it was a demolition derby conducted in silence. Marcus sat in his corner office at Sterling & Co., situated on the 40th floor of the Seagram building. The view was impeccable, a sprawling grid of steel and ambition. He swirled a glass of 18-year-old Macallan, watching Jessica Vane flip through a bridal magazine on his leather sofa. The plaza is available in June, Jessica said, not looking up. Daddy says if we book it now, he can get the mayor to officiate. June is perfect, Marcus replied, checking his Bloomberg terminal. The ticker for his upcoming IPO was already pre-listed. Analysts were predicting an opening price of $45 a share. He was going to be a billionaire. By June, the IPO will be settled, and I'll have bought that island in the Grenadines. He hit the intercom button. Janice, has Amethyst vacated the Jersey condo yet? I'm not sure, Mr. Sterling. Janice's voice crackled, sounding strangely nervous. The courier said the keys were returned yesterday, but they weren't returned to the condo manager. They were sent here, along with a note. A note? Marcus frowned. Bring it in. Janice entered, holding a small, cream-coloured envelope. It wasn't the cheap stationery Amethyst used to buy in bulk. This was heavy cardstock, embossed with a logo Marcus didn't recognize, a stylized, geometric crown. Marcus tore it open. Inside was a single line of text, handwritten in calligraphy. The house always wins. Cryptic, Jessica laughed, tossing her hair. She's probably watching too many movies, trying to be dramatic. She's pathetic, Marcus grunted, tossing the note into the trash. She's probably living in a motel. Just then, the phone on his desk rang. It was the private line, the one reserved for his biggest financiers. Sterling, he answered crisply. Mr. Sterling, this is Charles Whitmore from Vanguard Western. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional, and cold. Charles, good to hear from you. I assume you're calling to confirm the bridge loan extension for the IPO roadshow? Actually, no, Whitmore said. I'm calling to inform you that Vanguard Western has divested your portfolio. As of 9 a.m. this morning, we sold your debt obligations. Marcus froze. You what? My loan agreements have a non-transfer clause. They have a non-transfer clause unless the buyer pays a 20% premium on the principal, Whitmore corrected. Which they did, in cash. Marcus stood up, the scotch slopping over the rim of his glass. Who buys $200 million in corporate debt at a premium? That's bad business, Charles. Who is the holder? A private equity firm registered in Delaware, Red Queen Ventures. Red Queen? Marcus scoffed. Never heard of them. Get me their contact. I'll buy it back. You can't, Whitmore said. They've locked the file. And Mr. Sterling, they've invoked the Material Adverse Change clause. They're auditing your books starting Monday. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. A cold sweat broke out on the back of his neck. An audit? The week before his IPO, if an auditor found even a single misplaced receipt, the SEC would halt the public offering. His billions would vanish. What is it? Jessica asked, sensing the shift in the room. Some no-name firm bought my debt, Marcus muttered, pacing the room. They're trying to squeeze me. It's probably Jonathan Crane. He's trying to sabotage the IPO. So crush them, Jessica said simply. You're Marcus Sterling. You're the developer of the year. You're right, Marcus straightened his tie. I'll handle it at the gala on Friday. Everyone who is anyone will be there. I'll find out who Red Queen Ventures is, and I'll bury them. Meanwhile, 40 blocks uptown, Amethyst stood in the center of the private atelier of Valentino. The dress was a weapon. It was a deep, midnight black velvet that absorbed the light, cut with a neckline that was daring yet regal. It didn't look like a dress a wife wore to support her husband. It looked like a dress a queen wore to an execution. Julian Thorne sat on a velvet ottoman, sipping espresso. So, he took the bait? Hook, line and sinker, Amethyst said, turning to look at herself in the trifold mirror. He thinks Jonathan Crane is attacking him. He's going to spend the next 48 hours looking in the wrong direction. You know, Julian mused, we could just foreclose on him now. Red Queen Ventures owns his debt. We could seize his buildings tomorrow. No, Amethyst said, her eyes flashing in the mirror. That's financial. I want this to be personal. He humiliated me in private. I want to destroy him in public. She smoothed the fabric over her hips. Is the press ready? CNN, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times. They're all credentialed for the gala, Julian confirmed. They think they're there to cover his award. They don't know they're there for his eulogy. Amethyst smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. Perfect. Let's go make him famous. The annual New York Real Estate Gala was held in the Temple of Denda at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was the single most ostentatious night of the year for the city's property moguls. The room was bathed in golden light, the ancient Egyptian sandstone glowing behind tables set with white orchids and silver. Marcus Sterling arrived late, by design. He stepped out of his limousine with Jessica Vane on his arm. Jessica was wearing a shimmering gold dress that cost more than most people's cars. They walked the red carpet, the flashbulbs blinding them. Mr. Sterling, how does it feel to be the King of New York? A reporter shouted. It feels correct, Marcus quipped, flashing his $1,000,000 smile. This city rewards the bold. He worked the room like a shark in a tank of minnows. He shook hands with the mayor, laughed with the governor, and ignored Jonathan Crane, who was scowling by the bar. See? Marcus whispered to Jessica as they took their seats at the head table. Untouchable. Whoever Red Queen Ventures is, they're not here. They're scared. The lights dimmed. The host, a famous late-night talk show host, took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor the builders, the visionaries, and none more so than our developer of the year, Mr. Marcus Sterling. Applause thundered. Marcus stood up, buttoning his tuxedo jacket. He walked to the stage, the spotlight following him. He took the crystal award and leaned into the microphone. Thank you, he began, his voice smooth as silk. They say behind every great man is a great woman. But in my case, I found that greatness requires shedding the things that hold you back. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd. Everyone knew about the divorce. It was gossip fodder. I built Sterling & Co. on a simple principle, Marcus continued, his ego expanding to fill the room. Value. You have to know the true value of things, and when an asset, be it a building or a person, stops providing yield, you liquidate it. Jessica beamed from the front row. That is why, Marcus raised the award. I am announcing tonight that next week, Sterling & Co. will go public, valuing our empire at $3 billion. We are the future. Actually, a voice boomed from the back of the room, amplified by a microphone that overrode the stage speakers. That valuation is incorrect. The room went deadly silent. Marcus squinted into the darkness. Who said that? Who interrupts me? The spotlight operator, confused, swung the beam of light toward the back of the hall, near the massive stone gateway of the temple. Standing there was Julian Thorne, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman. The light caught the midnight black velvet of her dress, the diamonds dripping from her ears, and the sheer, undeniable power radiating from her stance. A murmur ripped through the crowd. Is that... No, it can't be. Amethyst walked forward. She didn't walk. She glided. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. The click-clack of her heels echoed in the silent hall. Amethyst? Marcus whispered, his hand gripping the podium. He laughed nervously. Security. My ex-wife seems to have had too much to drink and crashed the party. Please escort her out. 2 security guards stepped forward, but Arthur, Amethyst's massive bodyguard, stepped in their path. He didn't move a muscle, but his presence was enough to stop them cold. Amethyst kept walking until she reached the foot of the stage. She didn't look up at Marcus like a supplicant. She looked at him like a judge. Someone handed her a microphone. "I'm not here as your wife, Marcus," Amethyst said, her voice clear, calm, and amplified to every corner of the museum. "I'm here as the chairman of EV Holdings." "EV Holdings," Marcus scoffed, trying to regain control. "What is that? A knitting circle? Go home, Amethyst. You're embarrassing yourself." "EV Holdings," Amethyst continued, ignoring his insult, "is the parent company of Red Queen Ventures." The color drained from Marcus's face so fast it looked like he had been slapped. The glass award in his hand slipped, shattering on the stage floor. The sound was deafening. "You," Marcus stammered. "You own the debt?" "I own the debt," Amethyst confirmed. "I own the $200 million bridge loan you used to leverage your IPO. And, Marcus, you missed a clause in the fine print." She pulled a document from her clutch. "The loan covenants state that if the principal borrower undergoes a significant change in management or marital status without notifying the lender within 24 hours, the loan is in default. You divorced me on Tuesday. You didn't notify the lender." The room gasped. Financial reporters were furiously typing on their phones. This was blood in the water. That's a technicality," Marcus shouted, sweat beading on his forehead. "You can't do this." "I just did," Amethyst said coldly. "As of this moment, your loan is in default. Red Queen Ventures is exercising its right to accelerate the debt. You owe me $200 million, Marcus, right now, tonight." "I don't have that in cash," Marcus screamed. "My assets are tied up in the IPO." "Then the IPO is dead," Amethyst said, her voice like a guillotine dropping. "And since you cannot pay, I am initiating a hostile takeover of Sterling & Co. to recover my capital." She turned to the crowd, addressing the stunned audience of billionaires. "Ladies and gentlemen, the developer of the year is insolvent. Sterling & Co. is now a subsidiary of EV Holdings, and I am its new CEO." Marcus looked at Jessica Vane for help. Jessica was already standing up. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of horror and disgust, picked up her purse, and walked away from the table without looking back. Marcus was alone on the stage, surrounded by the shards of his broken award. Amethyst turned to leave, but she stopped and looked back over her shoulder. "You were right about one thing, Marcus," she said, her voice softening just enough to be dangerous. "You have to know the true value of things. You undervalued me, and that was the most expensive mistake of your life." She dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a thud that sounded like a coffin closing. As Amethyst walked out, the silence broke. Flashbulbs exploded. The questions shouted by the press weren't for Marcus anymore. They were for her. The Invisible Woman was now the most visible person in New York. But the story wasn't over. As Amethyst reached the exit, Julian Thorne leaned in. "That was spectacular," he whispered. "But you know what happens when you corner a rat?" "He bites?" Amethyst asked. "No," Julian said grimly. "He calls the other rats." Amethyst's phone buzzed. It was a blocked number. She answered it as she stepped into the cool night air. "You think you've won, Amethyst?" Marcus's voice hissed on the other end. He sounded unhinged. "You took my company. Fine. But you forgot one thing. The Ether algorithm. You built it on my laptop. During our marriage. Under New York law, that makes it marital property. I'm suing you for 50% of your $800 million, and I've got the lawyers to prove it." Amethyst hung up the phone. She looked at the city skyline. "Let him try," she whispered to herself. But deep down, a flicker of fear ignited. She had built the code on an old laptop. His old laptop. If he could prove that, everything she had just built could come crumbling down. The Monday morning after the gala, Amethyst woke up not to the sunrise over Central Park, but to a notification that her world had stopped turning. She tried to pay for her coffee at a boutique cafe on Fifth Avenue. Declined. She tried another card. Declined. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. She opened her banking app. The balance on her personal accounts, and, more terrifyingly, the operational accounts of EV Holdings, showed a balance of 0.0, frozen. Court order, Larouanois 89404. Her phone rang. It was Julian Thorne. He didn't say hello. Turn on the television, Amethyst, CNBC. She rushed back to the waiting car, the Rolls-Royce she might not be able to pay for much longer, and told Arthur to turn on the screen. There was Marcus Sterling. He looked haggard, humble, and perfectly sympathetic. He was sitting next to a man who looked like a viper in a bespoke suit, Silas Vane, Jessica's father, the senator, and it turned out, a former prosecutor. "My wife," Marcus was saying to the camera, his voice breaking theatrically, "was brilliant. I always said so. But I never imagined she would use the access I gave her. Access to my servers, my proprietary data, my personal laptop, to build a shadow company and steal my life's work. I'm not just fighting for my money. I'm fighting for every entrepreneur who has been betrayed by the person sleeping next to them." The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Sterling sues ex-wife for IP theft and fraud. Assets frozen pending investigation." Amethyst felt like the air had been sucked out of the car. "He's lying," she whispered. "He's spinning it so he's the victim." "It's working," Julian said over the phone. The court granted an emergency injunction. Silas Vane pulled strings with Judge Holloway. "They've frozen the $800 million. They've frozen your takeover of Sterling & Co. Amethyst, the board at Thorne Capital is freaking out. If this algorithm is proven to be stolen property, we lose everything. I can't protect you if you stole it." "I didn't steal it," Amethyst shouted, her composure cracking. "I wrote every line of code. I did it while he was out cheating on me. I did it while I was cooking his dinner." "Then prove it," Julian said, his voice hard. "You have a hearing on Thursday. If you can't prove the code is yours and yours alone, the deal is void, and you'll likely go to prison for corporate fraud." The line went dead. Amethyst arrived at her lawyer's office, a high-rise fortress in Midtown. Her attorney, a sharp-witted woman named Rachel Weiss, looked grim. "It's bad, Amethyst," Rachel said, spreading documents across the mahogany table. "Marcus has submitted a laptop into evidence, a MacBook Pro, serial number ending in 884. He claims it was the primary device used to develop Project Ether." Amethyst froze. That was the old laptop I used for my MBA coursework. It was his old discarded one. I did use it. But I wiped it before I left. I reset it to factory settings." Rachel sighed. "Forensics recover deleted data all the time, Amethyst. If his experts found fragments of the Ether source code on that hard drive, and that hard drive was purchased by Marcus Sterling, legally, that makes the code marital property. In New York, he's entitled to 50% of the asset value. Since the asset is the entire company, he effectively owns half of you." "He wants 50%? Amethyst asked. "No," Rachel said, sliding a settlement offer across the table. "He wants it all. This came in 10 minutes ago." Amethyst read the document. Settlement offer. Amethyst Vance admits to IP theft. She surrenders 100% control of the Ether algorithm to Sterling & Co. In exchange, Mr. Sterling will drop the criminal fraud charges and grant her a payment of $500,000. "He wants to buy me out for $500,000? Amethyst laughed, a hollow, dangerous sound. He wants to take my $800 million empire and give me crumbs. He thinks he has you cornered, Rachel said. He has the laptop. He has the senator. He has the public narrative. Amethyst, if that laptop has the code on it, we lose. Did you write the code on that machine? Amethyst closed her eyes, thinking back to those late nights. The coffee stains, the sound of Marcus snoring in the other room while she built a digital world. I wrote the framework on it, Amethyst admitted. But the core engine, the proprietary part, I moved that to a cloud server 3 years ago. I worked on it directly in the cloud. Can you prove it? I don't know. The cloud logs might be traced to that IP address. We need a miracle, Amethyst, Rachel said softly, or we need to find out what Marcus is really hiding. Thursday came with a storm that battered the windows of the New York Supreme Court. The courtroom was packed. Every tech journalist and real estate mogul in the city was there to see the downfall of the Black Widow. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table, looking confident. Silas Vane sat beside him. Amethyst sat with Rachel Weisz. She wore white, not innocent white. Clinical, sharp, surgical white. She looked like a scientist ready to dissect a specimen. The proceedings were brutal. Marcus's forensic expert, a man named Dr. Aris, took the stand. Dr. Aris? Silas Vane asked, pacing the floor. Please tell the court what you found on Exhibit A, the MacBook Pro owned by Mr. Sterling. We performed a deep sector scan, Dr. Aris said, projecting an image onto the courtroom screens. We found deleted fragments of Python and C++ code, specifically the neural network structure that matches the patent filing for the Ether algorithm. The timestamps on these file fragments date back to 2023, during the marriage. A murmur went through the crowd. And, Silas Vane continued, smiling like a shark, did you find any evidence that Miss Vance tried to hide this? Yes, Dr. Aris nodded. The drive was formatted 3 times. Someone tried very hard to erase the evidence of their work. Silas Vane turned to the jury. She used his computer, in his house, while living on his money. She built a fortune on his back, tried to delete the proof, and then stole the company. No further questions. It looked like a checkmate. Julian Thorne, sitting in the back row, put his head in his hands. Rachel Weisz stood up. She looked nervous. Ms. Vance, do we have a rebuttal? Amethyst stood up. She didn't look at the judge. She looked at Marcus. He was smirking. That smirk was his mistake. It was the same smirk he gave her when he handed her the divorce papers. It was the smirk of a man who thought he was smarter than everyone else in the room. Your Honor, Amethyst said, her voice steady. I would like to cross-examine the witness myself. I have a background in data architecture. Judge Holloway peered over his glasses. Unusual, Ms. Vance, but given the technical nature, I will allow it. Amethyst walked to the stand. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like a predator entering her hunting ground. Dr. Orris, Amethyst began. You said you found fragments of the code. Can you pull up the metadata for the file titled Neural Core FVU4? Dr. Aris tapped on his keyboard. It is on the screen. Read the last modified timestamp, please. November 14th, 2023, 11:42 p.m., Dr. Aris read. Interesting, Amethyst said. She turned to the court. November 14th, 2023, that was a Tuesday. Marcus, do you remember where we were that night? Marcus frowned. He didn't answer. We were at your company retreat in the Hamptons, Amethyst said. The Wi-Fi was down due to a storm. You complained about it all night. She turned back to Dr. Aris. Dr. Aris, does the metadata show a local save or a cloud sync? Dr. Aris squinted. It appears to be a local save. A local save, Amethyst repeated. So, someone typed that code onto the hard drive directly. But here is the problem. Amethyst pulled a flash drive from her pocket. Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit B. This is the server log from GitHub, the platform where I actually hosted the code. She plugged it into the presentation system. A new stream of data appeared. On November 14th, 2023, at 11:42 p.m., Amethyst pointed to the screen. The neural core JOVIOR file was indeed modified, but look at the IP address of the modification. The screen displayed an IP address, 192.168.0XX, location, Manhattan, NY. The edit came from Manhattan, Amethyst said, but the laptop, Exhibit A, was in the Hamptons with me and Marcus. How can a laptop in the Hamptons make a local save in Manhattan? The courtroom went silent. Dr. Aris looked confused. I'll tell you how, Amethyst said, her voice rising. It can't, unless that file wasn't created in 2023 at all, unless someone changed the system clock on the laptop to look like 2023, created a fake file, and then deleted it to make it look like recovered evidence. She turned on Marcus. He was pale. Dr. Aris, Amethyst barked. Check the system event log for last Tuesday, the day after the divorce. Dr. Aris typed furiously. His eyes went wide. Well? Amethyst demanded. There is an entry, Dr. Aris stammered. System clock manually altered. Backdated to November 2023. Files created. Then system clock restored. The gasp from the gallery sucked the oxygen out of the room. He planted it, Amethyst said, pointing a shaking finger at Marcus. He didn't find the code on the laptop. The laptop was empty. He put the code there last week to frame me for IP theft. Rachel Weisz jumped up. Your Honor, this is perjury. This is tampering with evidence. This is fraud on the court. Silas Vane was already packing his briefcase. He knew when a ship was sinking. He whispered something to Marcus and stood up to leave, distancing himself instantly. Marcus sat frozen. The smirk was gone, replaced by the terrified realization of a man who had just walked into a bear trap. Judge Halloway slammed his gavel. The sound cracked like a gunshot. Mr. Sterling, the judge boomed, you will remain seated. Bailiffs, secure the doors. I am referring this matter to the district attorney immediately for an investigation into evidence tampering and perjury. Amethyst walked back to her table. She didn't sit down. She looked at Julian Thorne, who was grinning ear to ear. Motion to dismiss? Judge Halloway asked Rachel Weisz. With prejudice, Your Honor, Rachel said, and we move to unfreeze the assets immediately. Granted, the judge said. Mr. Sterling, you might want to call a criminal defense attorney. You're going to need one. As the bailiffs moved toward Marcus, Amethyst walked past his table one last time. He looked up at her, eyes red and desperate. Amethyst, I did it for us, the company. I was trying to save the company. Amethyst leaned down, close enough that only he could hear. You didn't have a company, Marcus. You had debt. And now? She straightened up, smoothing her white dress. Now you don't even have your freedom. She walked out of the courtroom doors. The cameras were waiting, but this time she didn't hide. She put on her sunglasses, smiled for the flashbulbs, and stepped into the waiting Rolls-Royce. Where to, Miss Vance? Arthur asked. The Seagram building, Arthur, Amethyst said. I have a new office to redecorate. The ride from the courthouse to the Seagram building was less a commute and more a coronation. The rain had finally ceased, leaving the streets of Manhattan slick and reflecting the neon assault of Times Square in the distance. Inside the Rolls-Royce, the silence was heavy, not with tension, but with the sudden, crushing weight of victory. Amethyst sat staring at her phone. The notifications were rolling in like a tidal wave. Bloomberg had already updated their homepage. Sterling Empire falls. Amethyst Vance takes the throne. The stock for Sterling and Cubs, which had been halted during the hearing, was set to reopen in after-hours trading, and analysts were already predicting a rally based on the rumor that EV Holdings was injecting liquidity. "You're quiet," Julian Thorne said, watching her from across the cabin. "Most people would be popping the champagne." "I'm not most people," Amethyst replied, locking her phone screen. "And the work isn't done. Winning the war is one thing, Julian. Occupying the territory is another." The car pulled up to the curb of 375 Park Avenue. A week ago, Amethyst had stood on this exact sidewalk, waiting for Marcus to finish a meeting so she could ask him for grocery money. Today, the building security team was lined up outside, standing at attention. As the doorman opened the car door, he didn't look through her. He looked directly at her, with a mix of fear and reverence. "Good afternoon, Ms. Vance." "Welcome home." Amethyst nodded, stepping onto the pavement. "Thank you, Frank. Please ensure no unauthorized personnel leave the building with corporate assets. Total lockdown until I say otherwise." "Already done, Ma'am." The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt symbolic. With every passing floor number, Amethyst felt a layer of her old self, the timid student, the apologetic wife, the invisible woman, shedding away. When the doors pinged open, the atmosphere in the Sterling and Cumber bullpen was suffocating. Usually, this floor was a cacophony of shouting brokers and ringing phones. Now, it was a tomb. 200 employees stood or sat in varying states of paralysis. They had watched the live stream of the trial. They knew their king was dead. Amethyst walked down the central aisle. Her heels on the polished concrete were the only sound in the room. She didn't glare. She didn't gloat. She simply observed. She saw the fear in the eyes of the junior analysts. She saw the calculation in the eyes of the senior VPs, who were already wondering how to curry favor with the new regime. She stopped at the desk of Janice, the executive assistant. Janice looked terrifyingly pale, clutching a stapler as if it were a talisman. Miss Sterling," Janice stammered, her voice cracking. "It's Miss Vance," Amethyst corrected, her voice projecting clearly across the silent floor. "And Janice, breathe. You're the only person on this floor who remembered my birthday last year. Your job is safe. In fact, you're getting a raise. I'll need a chief of staff, and you know where the bodies are buried." Janice let out a sob of relief, slumping into her chair. "Thank you, Miss Vance. Thank you." "However," Amethyst continued, turning to face the room, her voice hardening, "that amnesty does not extend to everyone." She walked toward the corner office, the glass-walled sanctum Marcus had built as a monument to himself. The door was ajar. Inside, the chaos was palpable. Jessica Vane was there, frantic. She was sweeping items off Marcus's desk into a cardboard box, a crystal paperweight, a silver picture frame, a stack of client files. "Leave the files," Amethyst said, stepping into the doorway. Jessica jumped, spinning around. Her mascara was smudged, her hair disheveled. The arrogance that had defined her at the graduation ceremony was gone, replaced by the raw panic of a socialite facing exile. "This is personal property," Jessica snapped, though her hands were shaking. "My father is a senator. You can't just—" "Your father," Julian Thorne interrupted, stepping into the room behind Amethyst, "is currently issuing a press release stating he had no knowledge of Marcus's business dealings. You have no cover, Jessica. And those client files, that's proprietary data. If one page leaves this room, I'll have you arrested for corporate espionage before you reach the lobby." Jessica froze. She looked at the files, then at Amethyst. With a noise of pure frustration, she dropped the files back onto the desk. She clutched her Prada bag to her chest. "He's going to appeal, you know," Jessica hissed, trying to summon one last shred of venom. Marcus won't let you keep this. Marcus is currently being processed at Central Booking for perjury and evidence tampering, Amethyst said, calmly, walking around the massive mahogany desk. He'll be lucky if he gets bail. Now get out of my office. Jessica opened her mouth to speak, but Arthur, Amethyst's bodyguard, simply held the door open. The gesture was clear. Defeated, Jessica grabbed her box of trinkets and stormed out, the click-clack of her heels sounding like a retreat. The entire office watched her go. Amethyst turned to the window. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, golden shadows across the city. She placed her hands on the back of the leather executive chair. It was just a chair, but sitting in it felt like closing a circle. She sat. She swiveled to face Julian. "So," Julian said, taking a seat on the plush sofa. "The board of Red Queen Ventures, which is just you and me, needs to make some decisions. What do we do with the brand? The name Sterling is toxic right now." "Burn it," Amethyst said without hesitation. "We rebrand immediately. Remove the signage from the lobby tonight. Send a memo to all staff. Tomorrow morning, they answer the phones as Vance and Thorne Analytics." "Aggressive," Julian nodded appreciatively. "I like it." "And the IPO?" "Cancel it," Amethyst commanded. "We don't need public money. We have the Ether algorithm. We transition the company from a brokerage firm to a prop tech licenser. We sell the data, not the buildings. It's higher margin, lower risk. It's what I tried to tell Marcus to do for 3 years. He never listened," Julian mused. "No, he didn't." Amethyst looked down at the desk. There, under the glass top, was a small calendar Marcus kept. The date, June 15th, was circled in red ink. Grenadine's closing. She picked up the intercom receiver. "Janice?" "Yes. Ms. Vance? Get me the legal file on the petty St. Vincent property Marcus was in escrow for." "The private island, ma'am?" "The deal fell through when the accounts were frozen." "I know," Amethyst said, a small, genuine smile touching her lips for the first time that day. "Call the sellers. Tell them EV Holdings is prepared to close the deal. Cash. Full ask." "You're buying the island?" Julian raised an eyebrow. "Going to disappear for a while?" "I'm not disappearing, Julian," Amethyst said, standing up and walking to the window to look out at the empire she had conquered. "I'm just getting started. But every queen needs a summer palace. And besides, I think I owe myself a graduation present." She looked at her reflection in the glass. The scared girl from the rain in the alleyway was gone. In her place stood a titan. "Arthur," Amethyst called out. "Yes, boss?" "Have the car ready downstairs, and tell the driver to take the long way home. I want to see the city. My city." And that is how Amethyst Vance went from a discarded wife to the CEO of a billion-dollar empire in less than a week. She proved that the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate the person who knows your secrets. Marcus Sterling lost everything, his money, his reputation, and his freedom, because he couldn't see the genius sitting across the dinner table. What do you guys think? Was Amethyst's hostile takeover justified, or was it too ruthless? And seriously, buying the island he wanted, was that the ultimate power move? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of revenge and redemption, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and remember, success is the best revenge, but seizing the company is a close second. See you in the next video.